There are stories so old, so vast in scope, and so deeply embedded in a culture's memory that we no longer know where myth ends and history begins. The Mahabharata is one of them. While many in the West are familiar with Homer's Iliad or the legends of Troy, the Mahabharata, an epic from ancient India, is far older and far more expansive. It's one of the longest literary works in the world, more than 15 times the length of the Bible, and it tells the story of a brutal war between two royal factions, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. According to the text, this war lasted just 18 days, but it ended in near total annihilation. 18 armies entered, almost none returned. For centuries, this epic has been classified as mythology, a blend of spiritual allegory, fantastical storytelling, and cultural symbolism. But that view is beginning to change. Today, experts across disciplines, astronomy, genetics, and archaeology, are re-examining the Mahabharata and uncovering something remarkable: compelling evidence that supports its historical foundations, scientific evidence that lines up with the text's timeline, its astronomical descriptions, and its claims of catastrophic collapse. One of the most compelling clues comes from the stars. Unlike most mythologies, the Mahabharata includes precise references to planetary alignments, lunar phases, and solar eclipses, celestial events that modern astronomy software can model and verify. One verse describes an especially rare observation: the star Arundhati appearing ahead of Vasistha. To a casual reader, this sounds poetic, but to an astronomer, it's extremely specific. These two stars, known in the West as Alcor and Mizar, form a binary system in the Ursa Major constellation. Under normal conditions, Mizar always appears to lead, but due to a phenomenon called proper motion, there was a brief window between roughly 11,000 BCE and 4,500 BCE when Alcor briefly overtook Mizar. This reversal happened only once in thousands of years, and when researchers input all the celestial data from the Mahabharata, eclipses, solstices, planetary conjunctions, into modern simulations, one date fits all the criteria: 5561 BCE. That is not a symbolic number, it's a precise astronomical fingerprint. The epic appears to have recorded a real alignment of celestial bodies, something that could only have been witnessed during a very specific moment in prehistory, a moment the Mahabharata identifies as the beginning of its great war. The story doesn't just exist in verse, it exists in the sky. And yet the sky isn't the only place this ancient story leaves its mark. In 2015, a team of geneticists published a study in Genome Research that uncovered something extraordinary. About 7,500 years ago, there was a dramatic and sudden collapse in male genetic diversity across the Indian subcontinent. This wasn't a gradual decline, it was a massive reduction in Y chromosome variability, a genetic bottleneck. In simpler terms, millions of men disappeared from the gene pool, while female genetic lines remained stable. The only plausible explanation for this kind of demographic collapse is large-scale conflict, a war that disproportionately wiped out male populations. The Mahabharata claims that nearly 4 million warriors fought in its final battle. Almost all were men. Almost all died. Now we have two completely independent data points: a literary text that describes a war anchored to real astronomical events, and biological evidence, embedded in our very DNA, showing the aftermath of a mass male die-off in the same time and place. The stars and the genes weren't meant to align with the story, but they do, and there's more. The Mahabharata was not originally a written text, it was part of an oral tradition, passed down over generations, preserved by trained sages with extraordinary memorization techniques. More than 100,000 verses were committed to memory and recited with precision. This wasn't simply storytelling, it was information preservation. Ancient Indian society developed sophisticated methods to encode astronomical data, timelines, and geography into poetic form. What we often interpret as spiritual metaphor may in fact be historical record, wrapped in rhythm, layered with cosmology. This perspective changes everything. If the Mahabharata truly describes a war that took place in 5561 BCE, then it predates the Egyptian pyramids, Stonehenge, and even the earliest known cities of Mesopotamia. It suggests that human civilization may have been more advanced and more attuned to the cosmos than we currently recognize. This is not about literal interpretations of divine weapons or flying chariots. It's about understanding that ancient societies may have used symbolic language to document real events. Events that, through the lens of modern science, are beginning to emerge not as myths, but as history. The Mahabharata is not merely a spiritual or cultural epic. It is a time capsule. It remembers a civilization-changing conflict. And it's not alone in remembering. The stars remember it, our DNA remembers it, and now, with the tools of modern science, we can finally begin to remember it too. The question is no longer whether the Mahabharata is true in a mythical or metaphorical sense. The question is, how much of our ancient history have we dismissed simply because we lacked the means to verify it? Because in this case, the past wasn't lost. We just stopped listening.